There's about 2 weeks left to the regular season, and the playoff matchups are right now anyone's guess.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, right there. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now. And this is wrapping up my fifth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. Also on Instagram, you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And hey, swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On. You get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper terms of use and details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today and check out my co-host for today, as he's here every week from the desert, where he's crossed the desert on a horse with no name. Sign in, please.
Yeah, don't know how to ride a horse. Been horseback a couple times. It hurts the pelvis area a lot. Miller Thomas, host of Locked On Diamondbacks here. You can catch me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. And please, we're on all your podcasting platforms, and hit subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel.
I'm up north for a couple of days. I'm in the Bay Area just for a few days, and I went to the Oakland A's game. The A's and the Padres played yesterday in front of friends and family. I had a wonderful. I always have a wonderful time in Oakland, and you will see part of my journey there in a couple of episodes of the show. I recorded one where I just kind of went around the stadium to give you an idea of, the good and the bad. I mean, there's no sugarcoating the fact that the Oakland Coliseum is falling apart. That being said, I make the case that every baseball fan in 2024 should make an effort to go to a game in Oakland. And I make my case for that. Now, I'm not sure what day that's dropping, but I'm going to be doing that. I recorded a couple other things there too. So if you see a bunch of episodes with me with it as the backdrop, I shot all of that yesterday. So I had a lot of fun there. And Wes Hoffman, my buddy, was at the game there too. So, he's the single biggest A's fan I know. He goes to Stockton Ports games and Modesto Nut games and San Jose Giant games to see the prospects. And then he's always there at the A's game. He is a rabid A's fan. And if they move to Vegas, wouldn't surprise me if he takes the trip out there. So one of the original guests on the old Sully Baseball podcast. So just shout out there to Wes. And that actually is going to bring us to the trivia question. And the trivia question was, when the A's under owner Charlie Finley won those 3 straight World Series, they went to the playoffs 5 straight years, and they joined the Yankees as the only team to ever win the World Series 3 straight years, 72, 73, and 74. Who was the general manager who put those teams together? And Court Snell, who guesses on a lot of these, got it right. The answer wasn't Brad Pitt. No, it was not Brad Pitt. It was Charlie Finley himself. He had fired the general managers in 1970. He said, I could do this myself. And they went on under his stewardship to win 5 straight division titles and 3 straight World Series. And yes, he had scouts and everything working who helped draft the Reggie Jacksons and the Sal Bandos. But to be fair, Charlie Finley, as the owner, took a ton of chances on players that nobody else wanted. An example was a pitcher out of high school in North Carolina that all the other teams said, no, we're not going to touch this guy, because shortly before the beginning of his senior year, he shot himself with a shotgun in the foot and completely messed up his delivery. And so all the other teams said, no, thanks. And Charlie Finley said, yes, please, I'll sign you. And he became Hall of Famer Catfish Hunter.
Whoa.
And he was one of the first ones to really understand the importance of the draft. And he drafted, the Mets had the number 1 pick. They drafted Steve Chilcott. And the A's had the number 2 pick. They drafted Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson is in the Hall of Fame. Steve Chilcott played as many major league games as me. And so he understood the importance of the draft and made great, great trades. So, hey, Charlie Finley, madman, but you name a GM who's had the team win 3 straight World Series titles other than Brian Cashman. Okay, Corstel, good job there getting the trivia question there correct. I got a trivia question all lined up for the end, which has nothing to do with the A's, or does it? Let's check in on the playoff picture. Once again, it's complete and total confusion. The fact that the Boston Red Sox have, let's face it, decided to call it a season. Mm-hmm. And it looks like they're on the verge of being swept by Toronto. Okay. Oh, wait, no, they've tied the game at this point. Okay, fair enough. But with that and a couple of key losses to Seattle, suddenly Toronto, who just a couple of days ago looked like they were dead in the water, are back in the playoff picture. And they're taking advantage with an extra inning win the other day. And if they win today, it'll be yet another walk-off win.
Yeah, and they have a pretty strong rotation do it because Kevin Gausman, quietly, one of the better pitchers in the American League, going to get some Cy Young votes. You pair that with a Chris Bassett, and you pair that with a Jose Barrios, who've all been heating up. And Vlad Guerrero Jr., we can't mention. I've had some discussions on podcasts of, is Vlad Guerrero Jr. maybe a little overrated compared to that amazing season he had, a couple years ago? Hasn't really lived up to the expectations. But over the last couple of weeks, specifically this weekend, he's really heated up for the Blue Jays, and he can carry an offense. And so that Blue Jays team is loaded with talent. So it's not a surprise to see them back in the playoff picture.
Today, the Guardians smacked around the Rangers. There's half a game basically separates 3 teams at the top of the AL West, or basically a game and a half. So if you lose a game and you're the Mariners, the Astros, or the Rangers, it's going to haunt you big time. We'll see if this 9-2 loss is going to haunt the Rangers, as right now the Astros are beating the Royals. But remember, the Royals came back and beat the Astros the other day. And the Mariners are playing Los Angeles, so it's it's pretty tight. It's pretty tight going on there.
Yeah, that's a fiery division too, with the fan bases, with the stuff here. We just got a lot going on with that division, and I'm just rooting for all the teams, all the fans, all the podcast hosts, because whoever doesn't make it, someone is going to be pretty mad and pretty steaming, because the Astros, Mariners, and Rangers, at all different points of the season have had that division title in the grass, have been a division leader at some point. The Rangers have been so good throughout the whole season. We know about the history with the Astros, and then the Mariners have just really heated up over the last couple months. So whoever of those 3 teams don't make it to the postseason, I'm just going to have, I'm just going to be feeling really empathetic for the Locked On podcast hosts.
Now, let's also point out, you cannot circle the schedule and say, well, here's some easy wins coming up, because I guarantee you the San Francisco Giants circled the schedule when the Rockies were coming up, and the Reds circled the schedule when the Mets were coming up. And first of all, the Giants have had even if they're currently winning right now in the 5th, even if they win, this has been a disastrous trip to Coors Field, because it's a 4-game set with the terrible Rockies, and the Giants lost the first 3 games, including the game on Friday where Anderson basically, he threw 7 no-hit innings. The Rockies took a no-hitter into the 9th. You should never be no-hit in Coors, especially not by this pitching staff in Colorado. They're not exactly throwing Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz at you. And then the Giants, who needed a bases-loaded walk to push a second run across in Coors, wound up blowing the game in the bottom of the 9th with a weird wild throw home, which allowed the tying and winning runs to score. And then yesterday they had a doubleheader against the Rockies, and they got swept in the doubleheader. So even if they win this game today, they went into Coors knowing they desperately needed to keep winning to keep pace with everybody else, and they dropped the first 3 games. They're trying to avoid a 4-game sweep at the hands of one of the worst teams in baseball at a point where every game means more and more and more because we're only got 2 weeks left.
Yeah, and the great Ben Caspick of Locked On Giants actually posted some very interesting stats about this Giants team over the last few weeks in terms of their home road splits, because apparently this Giants franchise are on a 9-game road losing streak right now. So maybe it's not a total surprise that they went to Coors Field, because since July 19th, they're 4-23 on the road, according to the great Ben Caspick of Locked On Giants. So this is a team where when they've been at home, they've been able to win games. They've been able to keep pace, because even if you look at their last 10 games, they're still a 500 team. You look at their record over the last couple months, this Giants team is still keeping pace in that wild card mix. So it's actually insane to think that this team is struggling so much on the road and is still within 3 games of making it to the postseason with 2 weeks left.
But 3 games with 2 weeks left is a huge order, because you have to have multiple teams in front of you fold. Now, the fact that the Reds are losing to the Mets, that helps matters for them. But the fact of the matter is, you can't, if you're trying to keep pace with all them and you're going to play one of the worst teams in baseball. This is just, if the Giants miss the playoffs, this is going to be what they're going to look back on. This is the moment that they're going to say, wow, this is, I can't believe this. I can't believe it's not butter. And I can't believe that this is the way this team has fallen apart. Let's give a big shout out to let's be positive. Some of the people who have shown up. Sonny Gray pitching today for the Minnesota Twins. Twins are going to win this game against the White Sox, and they are marching closer and closer to a division title. And speaking of a team that you always dismiss because they're a regular season team, right now the Rays have the lead over the Orioles. If they hold on to that lead, they're going to be in a virtual tie for first place. And that's big time for the Rays.
Yeah, the Rays are the only team in the American League with at least 7 wins in their last 10 games. So they've been able to close the gap in the American League East. Really, if you look at the whole Major League Baseball standings right now, like every team is either like between 4 and 6 wins in their last 10 games. Like everyone is basically playing 500 baseball over the last couple of weeks, and the Rays are the only team that's playing at a better pace than that. So this team, as you just said, they're a regular season team, in my opinion. I love what they're doing. They're going to have a great roster entering the postseason. We're going to be feeling good about the Rays. They're going to have one of the best records in the American League. Then they're going to lose in the divisional round, maybe the championship series in 6 games or less. And it's going to be another season. It's going to be another season where like, man, that Rays team was really fun, but analytics once again takes them out.
Well, hey, let's point out the other team in Florida, the Miami Marlins. You circle the calendar that they have a series against the Braves. Now, granted, the Braves have clinched and they could ease up on the throttle, but they're still playing the freaking Braves. And Jake Berger, Luis Ariz, Jorge Soler, their bats, Jazz Chisholm Jr. from the commercial where he can act and Derek Jeter can't. They're are hitting the tar out of the ball, and they are taking advantage of the Reds' losses and the Giants' losses. There's still a half game out, but there's still, you look at the counter, we got to play the Braves. They showed up. Their bats are going crazy, and they've lost. They get the horrible news that they've lost Sandy Alcantara for the rest of the season, and that's devastating because Alcantara was pitching very well the second half of the season, but still. And by the way, in terms of he won the NL Cy Young Award last year. We're going to talk a little bit later about this year's NL Cy Young, which if you could figure it out, God bless you. But give the Marlins credit. They have shown up to play, and if they don't get in, they are literally going down swinging. And I think that that's fantastic because those players I just listed, Soler, Jazz, Ariz, Berger, they are all such exciting players to watch. And I have to make this pitch. Permanently go to the red tops. I love the red tops for the Marlins uniforms. I like the teal, hate the black ones where you can't read the writing because it's black on black. It looks weird. But the red tops, chef's kiss.
Mwah. Yeah, there's not many teams in a crucial wild card race that could lose the reigning Cy Young Award winner and still feel good about the rotation, because the Marlins are just absolutely loaded with young starters, with the Luzardos, the Braxton Garretts, the Yuri Perez's, and then, like you mentioned, their offensive players are heating up. We said entering the season, this Marlins team was going to be in the mix. You, I think, picked them to make the postseason.
I picked them to be a wild card team, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be a wild card team, but I was like, they're going to be a competitive team this year because of that rotation. My biggest question was, can they score enough runs to match this rotation? And you look at them the last month. I mean, the Solairs have had a breakout season with the Arias and all those guys you just mentioned. Jazz Chisholm, when he's healthy, is a true difference maker. There's a reason he's on the cover of MLB The Show. Maybe it was a little bit too early for Jazz Chisholm, but this guy's got true 30-30 potential. So when you have all those guys cooking, their deadline was a crush, like you said, with the Jake Burgers and the Josh Bells of the world. Just added two more offensive pieces in that lineup. There's really not a hole on this roster too much. And like I said on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, the Marlins are the team in this wild card race that scares me the most when I look at that lineup, when I look at that rotation, and look at all the young talent that they have on that team right now.
And they're staying healthy. And speaking of staying healthy.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of staying healthy, if you need some life-saving antibiotics, the best place to get some is Jace Medical, because everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout. JaceMedical.com. That's JASE Medical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON.
By the way, do you know who should be contacting Jace Medical? Is Shohei Ohtani.
Okay.
Shohei Ohtani.
Painkillers?
Yeah. I don't know how familiar you are. I'm going to date myself with the movie Caddyshack, but there's a movie in the scene when Rodney was desperately trying to get out of a golf tournament and he hit a golf ball and it ricocheted off his arm. It very clearly just glanced him, but then he kind of looked around and said, "Ow, my arm. I think it's broken. I think Shohei Ohtani may have done that the last couple of days. Some people have been quick to correct me when I was saying he didn't show up to the photo op, that he had something to do. Of course he had something to do.
Yeah.
And now he's like, yeah, I'm kind of hurt. Bye. He's cleared out the locker. Yeah, we've already seen that he can't pitch because of tear. He has an oblique. He says, I'm out of here. And of course, he cleared out his locker before the Angels could make any sort of announcement. So, Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees pointed out, can the Angels do anything right? Like, they have to make even the act of Shohei Ohtani clearing out his locker some sort of mystery that we have to solve. It's like they can't get ahead of anything. There is no scenario where Shohei Ohtani signs with the Angels at this point. I think he's more likely to sign with the Montreal Expos, that they would form an Expos team just so Ohtani could sign with them. That he'll sign with the Savannah Bananas before he signs with the Angels at this point. It's over. Why would he come back?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the vibes aren't good. I've been on the bandwagon. I've been on let's give a little bit of hope. It's not over just yet. Maybe the injury actually helps Ohtani come back to the Angels. But what we've seen the last couple of weeks with the reporting and just his nonchalant attitude toward the organization. I mean, and I don't even blame the guy, because I think if Ohtani didn't tear his, UCL or whatever, I think he would still be playing right now. I truly think if he was fully healthy, I don't think this is like Ohtani just quitting on his situation. It's, I'm hurt. I'm probably going to have to get Tommy John. Why am I just going to do the Bryce Harper DH thing if we're literally not playing for anything at this point in the season? Might as well just wrap it up instead of, trying to get further injuries. So I totally get it from that perspective of Ohtani. And yeah, right now, It probably feels like Ohtani is leaving the LA Angels. And listen, until that actually happens, I'm still going to hold on to the idea that it was smart for the Angels to go all in at the deadline and try to keep their superstar. But once we see Ohtani officially sign with the Arizona Diamondbacks this offseason, I'm going to have to change my tune and say, yeah, they should have moved him at the deadline.
I was very adamant about my stance. They couldn't do this. This was the scenario they had to avoid. And again, it's nice that they acquired a bunch of people, and I'm sure I can get a Lucas Giolito Angels jersey for you real cheaply.
Because the thing with, if you traded Ohtani at the deadline, you would have got maybe something, but would the return been great? Probably not. We saw when the Orioles traded Machado at the deadline a few years ago. Yeah, you got back something, but in the end, it amounted to nothing. So I didn't mind the Angels saying, you know what? Why not try to do everything to keep Ohtani, even though it was probably a little too late at that.
Why not?
Why not?
Because they're getting nothing. They're getting nothing for him.
Probably.
No, you had the chance to get something. And this is, I'm going to say something philosophical here. Something is better than nothing.
But I look at
what they got was the worst case scenario. Nothing.
But I look at like Machado and Arenado and
there have been bad trades. There have been bad trades.
I'm like, most of the time you get nothing if you're just
most of the time. Every once in a while you get a Sandy Alcantara. Every once in a while you get a Zach Gallen. Every once in a while you get a Randy Arozarena. You know, maybe you roll up your sleeves and you say, hey, there's a couple players you have here who I think, you're not giving your number one prospect. All right, give up your 4 and 5 prospect or something like that. At least that's something. Why? I mean, sometimes you can get something. And the idea, the possibility that person is going to become a Josh Donaldson, who was a toss-in the Rich Harded trade and wound up becoming an MVP. Obviously, the greatest case scenario would be a Ryan Sandberg or a Jeff Bagwell or a John Smoltz, where you got a Hall of Famer, in a prospect swap. But, or if you get a good major leaguer, that beats this.
The real issue is the Angels never trading Ohtani like last season, or extending Ohtani last season, or building a competitive roster going into this season, trying to do it on the fly at the deadline, just sitting on your hands at the deadline with Ohtani. Like at this point, I think all of it was moot once you got to the deadline. At this point, I think all the real issues probably started, last year in the offseason, the year prior, the last 10 years, the whole Mike Trout era. I think you could point to the issues back then.
It all, you know what? You can trace it back to that, 10, 11 game losing streak they had last year, because they actually were a playoff team going into June.
Yeah, when before the Madden thing.
They went in the massive tailspin that cost Madden his job. And from that moment up until the trade deadline, it's been chaos. And so here we go. I mean, it's all but official. It is all but official. And now his season is over. His season is done. And, I think he's going to, is he going to be with the Red Sox? Is he going to be with the Cubs? Is he going to be with the Dodgers? Is he going to be with the Mariners? Going to be with the Giants? Going to be with the Mets? Some team's going to pony up for him, and some team that's a lot closer to the playoffs than the Angels. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Angels record last year. At the end of, in the middle of May, this was a team that was 7-8 games above 500. They're 24-16 at one point last season. So it's they did get off to a little bit of a hot start, and then all went down in the gutter. And using your money to spend on guys like Anthony Rendon have just been an absolute disaster for your franchise.
And meanwhile, you get money spent on players and their performance, but no longer Ohtani. Some of them will be sleeper picks. Did somebody say sleeper?
Yeah, I mean, if I could do sleeper for sure, if you want me to do sleeper.
No, I'm about to do sleeper. I'm about to tell you. The Major League Baseball playoffs are right around the corner, which means the clock is ticking on your chance for 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. And this is the great time of the year. I mean, we mentioned players like Arise and Soler and Jazz and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is heating up. Mookie Betts is getting some big hits. Berger the other day. I mean, all these players are putting up some big numbers. What's his name? The kid from the Baltimore Orioles, Gunnar Henderson. Is it Gunnar Henderson? They all
Yeah.
sound the same. All their prospects sound the same. They all sound like they should have been, characters on Beverly Hills 90210. But I digress. If you want to get 100 times your money, you got to pick more or less on stats for stars like those for home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right. You can win big. Entries can be made in just under a minute. And you have group team chat functionality in the app. Use promo code LOCKEDON. You get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Sleeper, let's win some money.
And hey, don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcasting. Download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks.
Hey, the NL Cy Young race.
Oh,
last year it was cut and dry.
Yeah.
Sandy Alcantara. Absolutely. This year is weird. This year is very weird because up until a few weeks ago, Zach Gallen was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had a couple of crummy starts. He had a rotten start against Los Angeles, the Dodgers, where he got bombed. Then he had a terrible start against Baltimore. Okay, but those are two of the best teams. And then he on the 8th of September against Chicago, not a bad team, a playoff team, and a team they were chasing. He threw a complete game 3-hit shutout, struck out 9 Cubs, 1-0 no less. And when that happened, I said, he's back. He's back. He's going to win the Cy Young Award. And then he promptly got smoked by the Mets in his next start. And so what looked like a slam dunk for Zach Gallen has turned into an absolute free-for-all, of which Spencer Strider's in the middle of it, Logan Webb of San Francisco is in the middle of it, and Blake and Snell from San Diego has a chance to join, say it with me, Gaylord Perry, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, and Pedro Martinez as someone to win the Cy Young Award in both the American League and National League.
Insane. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer, Blake Snell?
Like those, saying that in a normal world, Clemens would be in the Hall of Fame. Perry's in the Hall of Fame. Randy Johnson in the Hall of Fame. Pedro Martinez is in the Hall of Fame. And Blake Snell.
All-timer, legend, icon.
When you think of the greats, when my grandkid is on my knee and say, Grandpa Sully, tell me about when you saw Blake Snell. And I'll tell you where he was absolutely mowing down the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 6 of the World Series, let up 1 hit, and Kevin Cash absolutely panicked and took him out. And the nanosecond he took him out, I sent out a tweet that said, congratulations, Los Angeles Dodgers, on winning the 2020 World Series, which they did. Still, I think one of the single worst managerial decisions ever made, because we all knew it was dumb in real time. That being said, I don't know what to make. I'm still leaning towards Zach Gallen just because of his overall season, but it's becoming less and less. That's kind of like the way you're holding on to Ohtani to stay with the Angels. That's me holding on, ironically, to a Diamondback to winning the Cy Young Award. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I love Zach Gallen. I think in one of these years he will win the Cy Young, but I don't think it will be this year. I don't even think he's going to be on the MLB Network show where they show the 3 finalists. I don't even think he's going to be one of the 3 finalists. Funny thing right now, if you actually look at the FanDuel odds, it's a 2-player race. Blake Snell, overwhelming favorite at -900. I mean, when you look at the stats for Blake Snell, he's number 1 in WAR for pitchers, number 1 in ERA. He's top 5 in wins. He's number 1 in hits per 9. He's number 2 in strikeouts. He's basically top 2 in every major statistic. So Blake Snell, I think, is going to win the award hands down at this point in the season. Number 2 in FanDuel odds is Justin Steele at +700. And then Sully, kind of a late surprise, late addition at +7,000, tied for number 3. Rookie for the New York Mets, Kodai Senga, is now tied for top 3 in the Cy Young Award race. How did you feel about Senga now coming into the top 3?
I think it's been a good acquisition. I do think there should be a different category. I think we should call it the Ichiro Suzuki Award, because I think a player coming from a professional league who is different, is maybe their first year from a professional league, but that's different from your coming up from the minor leagues. I think that, the fact that Ichiro Suzuki won the Rookie of the Year, or Shohei Ohtani won the Rookie of the Year when they were an established professional player in a professional league, I think that to me isn't a rookie. Yes, they were in a different league, and I understand it's their first year in the majors. And you could make the case for the players like, Jackie Robinson, who played for the Kansas City Monarchs before. You could make that case as well. But Senga has been a very good acquisition for the Mets. I think he's been good. He's been one of the few bright spots this year. And as the Mets and Stearns are now going to look forward to building a roster from within and taking your time instead of doing the quick fix, which they tried, I think they're going to have Senga as a solid building block of that team. I don't think he's going to win it. Right now, Snell looks like he's going to win. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's Snell's award.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how fast he overtook everybody. I'm still, as I said, Snell was obviously gaining on everyone. And when Gallen threw that shutout, I thought, he's back. He's going to claim it. And it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, Gallen just has had too many bad starts in the last month in the most pivotal point of the season when your team is in this wild card race. I think that is going to ding him when it's like, okay, each game is so important. Each game is going to, like, you're tied in these third spot for the wild card. Like, every game matters. And then Gallen keeps going out there and giving up 6 earned runs, it seems like, every start. I just think that's going to ding him in this race.
How weird a year is this for San Diego? Well, they have all these superstars. And if you win, they're going to have all the superstars on the team. And multiple manager of the year winner Bob Melvin at the helm, coming off a year where they got to the NLCS, and they wake up and Snell is going to win the Cy Young Award. And there's a log jam for the NL playoffs, and they're not involved in it. I mean, how weird a year is
Super weird. I think the numbers too would tell you, like, they have one of the better run differentials in the National League.
Yeah.
They have like one of the best pitching staffs in terms of ERA and in the entire Major League Baseball. So it's like the numbers tell you, like, maybe this Padres team statistically should be in the mix. And that's why I think they're my bounce back team to make it to the postseason next year, just because I think they're entirely too loaded when you look at the stars in their lineup, when you look at the stars in their rotation. I just think they have too many guys who have another just disappointing season like this next year. But the guy who is going to win the Cy Young Award, Blake Snell, he is going to be a free agent this offseason. Also, I think Josh Hader is going to be a free agent this offseason for the Padres. So they're going to have big decisions to make, because you're going to have Blake Snell coming off a Cy Young Award season. Like, he's going to be very expensive. He chose the right time to win a Cy Young Award. And then Josh Hader has like a sub 1.3 ERA. So the Padres are going to have some big decisions to make on those two pitching stars of whether to bring them back on major price tags or not, because we know they already have so much money committed to the payroll right now.
All right. Well,
and you still have Juan Soto not even locked up yet, too.
It's going to be an interesting offseason. And also going to see if Bob Melvin will actually survive this.
Oh,
because he's got only 1 year left in his contract. I mean, there's been talk of leadership issues with the team. That usually falls on the head of the manager. So we'll see what happens. I'm still a Bob Melvin fan. But all right, well, we're going to see. Got another couple weeks of this, and then see the postseason. But postseason's coming about. Postseason heroes. We don't know who the next big postseason hero is going to be. But this brings about the trivia question. Who is the only first overall pick in the MLB draft to go on to become the World Series MVP? There have been Hall of Famers. There have been MVPs, but only one has gone on to be the World Series MVP. Who is the only number one overall pick to win the World Series MVP? So send your answers. Post it here on YouTube or on Twitter or whatever it's called now at Locked On MLB Pods, or mine, which is Sully Baseball. Have you figured it out?
I think I know who it is now.
All right. Well, tell me when we're done. I don't want to spoil it for everyone.
Yeah.
So, Miller, where can people follow you?
Follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram. We're on all your streaming platforms, of course. And please subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube.
All right. Well, let's wrap up another weekend here and another week of baseball. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover. He's Miller Thomas. I'm your pal Sully. Let's fist bump for another week.